Greetings and welcome to quick tip number 76. My name is Stash Wyslouch and I'm your host. Today's quick tip: explore intervals of your own scales. In the previous quick tip number 75, we discussed a very intuitive way to construct your own 7-note scales against a certain chord. In this quick tip, what I want to discuss is a way to deepen your experience of the sound, sight, and feeling of these scales to give you more ideas on ways to expand your melodic and improvisational vocabulary. So first, let's pick a scale. Let's say, for example, we wanted to do a 7-note scale against a C chord. So we have the notes C, E, and G. We have to fill in the D, F, A, and B. The scale I've chosen to play against a C chord in space contains the notes C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and B flat. If we express this in terms of degrees, it's the 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, and flat 7. In some circles, this might be referred to as the Lydian flat 7 mode. But again, you don't need to know that. All you need to know is it's got the framework of a C major chord and some interesting colors that we've decided we like and now want to explore further. Step 1, before we get into exploring the intervals, is I want to map out where the notes of the scale are. Mapping the position before exploring something is a really helpful incremental step. So I want to use the open position, meaning if we can play a note open, we do. We would not play the 5th fret on the D string. We would play an open G. We start on a C, the next note D, the next note E, the next note F sharp, the next note G, next note A, next note B flat, next note C again, next note D, next note E, next note F sharp, next note G, and that's where the position ends. If we went below the first C, it goes C, down to a B flat, down to an A, down to a G, down to an F sharp, down to an E. Now I would just play it up and down to get the sound in my head against a backing track of a C chord, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool. Now let's assume that we're pretty comfortable just moving that scale up and down. I might be skipping a few weeks of practice here in this video, but let's just move on anyways to give you an idea of an overarching aim. Now I want to look at some different intervals. Let's take an interval of a 6th, for example. What do I mean by a 6th? The distance from the 1st note to the 6th note, or the distance of the 2nd note to the 7th note. How could you count it? Well, you start on the 1st note, for example, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A. You moved up 6 steps. You can do this off of any of the notes, as long as you count the 1st note that you start counting on. What's the 6th up from the 2nd degree, the D? D, E, F sharp, G, A, B flat. Cool. Now I've got the position mapped, and my suggestion is to just do a structured practice routine where you play the scale, but between each of the notes in the scale, you go up a 6th. So you start on the 1st note, go up a 6th to the A, go to the 2nd note, D, go up a 6th to the B flat, 3rd note, E, go up a 6th to the C, 4th note, the F sharp, go up a 6th to the D, etc., etc. You get to the top of the position, reverse. Start at the top of the position, in this case the G, the 5th, and go down a 6th to the flat 7, to the B flat. Keep going. Sharp 4, down to the 6th, 3rd, down to the 5th, 2nd, the sharp 4. Back up. That could be a great structured exercise if we're thinking of our three-pronged practice routine: improvising, structure, and composition. Start your day out like that. Put a backing track, C, real slow, and just work up and down the 6th. Once you're starting to feel kind of comfortable with that, or even before you're feeling comfortable, you just want to explore a little bit, improvise some melodies combining just scalar motion and these new intervals, these 6ths. I've discussed this idea before in a quick tip number 7, exclusively available to my patrons on patreon.com. And I inserted a couple of ways that you could manipulate this exercise. So that'd be worth checking out if this idea of exploring intervals in new scales is interesting. The exercises in quick tip 7 were only in relation to a major scale, but they're easily applicable to any scale, specifically any 7-note scale, that you decide to play against a certain chord. Now in this quick tip we only dealt with 6ths. There's no reason not to try other intervals: seconds, thirds, 5ths, 4ths, 9ths. See what happens. You'll start to hear the scale in a whole new way. Certain intervals played against a backing track will highlight the color notes. For example, if you go from a sharp 4, the F sharp, up a 6th to the 9th, it's a very nice 6th sound. And then played against that C chord, you're not hearing any of the chord tones, but just the colors played against it in this new structure. We're going to keep exploring this in future quick tips, ways to expand on the structural way of practicing these intervals. And I just want to point out something interesting here. Some of these scales, if you look at quick tip 75 that we came up with, pretty weird. They involved, for example, 2 half steps in a row. There was a scale we derived against a C major chord. There was a C, D flat, E, F, G, A flat, B natural, back to C. Hey! Okay, great. So if we're doing a scale like that in thirds, you might come across something that you could call a theoretical third. For example, in that scale, if you go from a B up a third, you end up on a D flat. B, C, D flat. But the actual distance between a B and a D flat is only technically 2 half steps, a major second. I don't know exactly what to do with that, but it certainly makes the scalar content and these structures within it sound pretty interesting and gives it a very distinctive character that you wouldn't necessarily pick out just by playing the scale up and down. This could be an idea worth exploring in the near future. Just wanted to throw that in the pipeline. If you like this quick tip and you want to support the making of these lesson videos, please consider becoming a patron on my Patreon page. Subscribe to the YouTube and share with your friends. I'm still accepting students, so if you'd like to sign up for a lesson package, please send me an email at info@stashwyslouch.com. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.